Okay, I want to start with just saying I feel so blessed to be here. I was just talking to Stella about why did you put me on near last, because there's been so many incredible speakers. I've learned a ton. I feel really blessed that I've been brought here to share the research that I've conducted over the last few years. I want to start, though, with a question. By a show of hands, how many people in here have children or know someone who does? I'm in the right spot. Excellent. And we're going to do this raw. I don't have any notes. We're just going to go with it. So I was mentioning this to Stella, too. I hope I get an invite at some point. I guess I'll know how well I do today based on whether or not I'm invited back. So my name is Logan Lancing. I'm here to discuss the war on normal. Nothing about the last 10 years has been normal, as all available evidence suggests from speaker after speaker after speaker after speaker. There's a lot of reasons for that. I learned a lot in the last couple of days, but I'm here to argue that one of the chief reasons things have been so abnormal is the rise of queer theory and its relentless assault on the normal. Its relentless assault on the truth, on legitimacy, on reality itself. And its relentless assault on education, which is my area of expertise. So for those of you who don't know, roughly 5 years ago, I was preparing to be a father for the first time. Now I have 2 young boys, and they make me very proud, and this is why I do this. But I was looking around and thinking, what the hell is going on in education? I was reading stories about an all-girls school in Massachusetts where they were no longer going to address girls as girls. They released a 106-page DEI document explaining the changes. And at this school, parents were shelling out more than the median annual household income for the state each and every year to send their little girls to an all-girls school that would no longer address them as girls and would no longer address parents as parents. Then I read stories about drag queens in schools, and I don't know about all of you, but when I was in school, there were no drag queens in the schools. So that was a real eyebrow raiser. What's going on with that? I thought. Some of these drag queens were saying things like, we are going to, quote, teach children to live queerly. That raised my eyebrows. What do you mean by that? Some of them were also saying things like, we are going to teach children, quote, to embrace alternate modes of kinship. Excuse me, what does that mean precisely? And some of them were saying we're going to leave a trail of glitter that never comes out of the carpet. What does that mean? I thought. Then her name is Lil Miss Hot Mess. My contributor to my book, The Queering of the American Child, Dr. James Lindsay, found her paper, Drag Pedagogy, long story, but yeah, she said that if you're interested in reading that brilliant take. I mean, also, horrifically was, and a lot of you are familiar with this, reading stories about perfectly healthy 13-year-old girls who were seeking out elective double mastectomy procedures because they had been convinced they were born in the wrong body. And as a person who was preparing to be a father, I thought, that's witchcraft. What's going on with that? Have we completely lost our damn minds? Kids were learning about gender identity in math class. There's a book I talk about a lot, Queering Critical Literacy and Numeracy for Social Justice. If you're looking for a good time and you've got all weekend to read this nonsense, go for it. The entire thing is about using math class to push queer theory on children. Pride flags in the classrooms rather than American flags. I had some questions. The first one, chief of which, is what am I looking at? And I think that's been a question that has been on a lot of people's minds. What is this? Who created these insane ideas? I promise you they did not grace us from the heavens. Who created them? Who put them into schools? And what are they attempting to do with our children? These were the questions that guided me. Now, I'm not an academic. I have no academic training, really. And at the time, I was not the best-selling gay studies author that I am now. I was just a concerned father, and I thought, well, I don't know what to do. I've got questions, I don't know where to start, but I know I can read. My public education gave me that, I can read. Nowadays, it's very questionable, especially depending on where you're going to public school. But I know I can read, and I noticed there are a lot of these cute cartoons, you know, the genderbread man, the gender unicorn, that are really designed to grab kids' attentions. And I noticed there's references on those, so I figured, well, I'll go read the references, and that changed my life. But I read the references, and then I read the references that those documents referenced. And I had a hell of a time going down the rabbit hole and reading and reading and reading until I stumbled onto a paper that launched me, catapulted me, rocketed me on a direct collision course with all of you here today. And that paper was Kevin Kumashiro's 2002 paper, Against Repetition, 2002. And in that paper, Mr. Kumashiro says this, quote, "Educators not only have a responsibility to draw students into a possible crisis, but also to structure experiences to help them resolve their crises productively." 2002. This guy's not a fringe academic either with purple, well, he might have purple hair, I'm not sure, but he's not fringe. Very well cited, respected in the academy in 2002, went on to be the dean of several education departments. And here he is saying that educators they're responsible for drawing students into crisis in the classroom. Excuse me, no, we're not doing that. How did this happen? How did we all miss this? I'll never forget where I was. I was on the couch, the kids were in bed at this time, and I'm sitting here thinking, what am I reading? I show it to my wife. Am I reading this correctly? Have I gone mad? I'll never forget it. He went on to say that queer teaching and learning always works through crisis. The goal is to continue teaching and learning through crisis, to continue to experience the queer. Now, at the time, I had no idea what this man was talking about anywhere else in the paper. No clue whatsoever. And for any of you that have spent a single solitary minute reading queer theory, you'll know precisely what I mean. It's intentionally confusing. It's absurd. I had no idea what he was saying anywhere else, but I knew that line that educators are responsible for drawing kids into crisis. That's wicked and evil. And I've got to figure out what is going on here. So from there, I continued to read and read and read. And then I wrote a book about what I found so I can save all of you from the hell that I went through reading all of this shit. The Queering of the American Child, available at fine bookstores everywhere as long as it's Amazon. Thank you for anyone who's purchased it. And this is what they meant. They meant they were going to use education as a vehicle to recruit children into the war on normal. To use education as a vehicle to recruit children into the war on truth, on legitimacy, on reality itself, and ultimately to use education as a vehicle to recruit children into a radical, revolutionary, religious cult. And this is not me being hyperbolic for clicks online. I mean that precisely when I say it, a radical, revolutionary, religious cult. And hopefully by the end of my talk, you don't have to agree with me, but at least you'll know where I'm coming from. So, first thing I have to get out of the way, and I apologize for some of you who may have heard this multiple times, but this gets brought up every time. Queer theory has essentially nothing to do with being gay or lesbian. Absolutely nothing. It is hostile towards the idea of someone who happens to be gay or lesbian, growing up and fitting in and living in a society, having a happy, healthy, normal life, getting along just as any other person might get along. Completely hostile towards that idea. And why is that? Well, if someone grows up and they fit in and they lead a happy, healthy, normal life and they're stable, then queer theory loses the radical, political, revolutionary potential energy that that person might otherwise have. They lose someone who's hooked on grievance. They lose a foot soldier in their revolution. So right from the outset, you need to know, if you didn't already, queer theory has nothing to do with being gay or lesbian. Read their literature, they'll tell you all about it. Talk to someone who is gay or lesbian and ask them how they're treated by queer activists when they speak out against them in their program. Talk to them and see what they have to say about it. Okay, with that out of the way, we've got to discuss, what does queer mean? And queer in their literature is defined in 1995 by David Halperin. in his book, Saint Foucault Towards a Gay Hagiography. Awesome title. That's the kind of stuff I've been reading. And in that book, Halperin says this, and this is a longer quote. I'll break it down afterwards, so bear with me. He says, quote, "Unlike gay identity, queer identity need not be grounded in any positive truth or in any stable reality. It acquires its meaning from its oppositional relation to the norm. It is by definition whatever is at odds with the normal, the legitimate, and the dominant. There is nothing in particular to which it necessarily refers. It is an identity without an essence." End quote. Now, what does that commie gobbledygook mean? Unlike gay identity, that's what I was just talking about, queer identity need not be grounded in any positive truth. Right from the outset, queer theory says there is no such thing as a positive truth. No such thing as a capital T truth that's out there in the world that all of us can access or discover or try and come closer to with our rational faculties. It starts out right from the outset, said there's no positive truth. Then it says, we don't care, we don't want a stable reality. It's a completely destabilizing program. It is a temple built on permanently shifting sands with the goal of finding any other temples it can find, anything with a stable foundation, and hammering away incessantly until that foundation is permanently shifting as well. It's a perpetual revolution. So we've got something that's not about gays and lesbians, that's completely rejects the idea of a positive truth or a stable reality. Sounds great, let's teach it to kids. That's their program. And it acquires its meaning from its oppositional relation to the norm. It's by definition, whatever is at odds with the normal, the legitimate, and the dominant. So it's not really something you can be. It's something you do. It's a flag you plant. It's an orientation you adopt in the world against all rules, regulations, laws, anything considered normal, stable, true, and legitimate. It's a radical, revolutionary political position, not based in reality, not stable at all, against everything. What's the line from Faust? All that exists deserves to perish. That's how I've started to define queer theory. That's it summed up in a single sentence. Okay, so from there, queer theory says its fundamental bedrock claim is you are all queer. All of you. All of you are queer. I bet you didn't know that when you woke up this morning. But why? Why didn't you know you were queer when you woke up this morning? Well, queer theory says you've forgotten it. You forgot you were queer. You've forgotten it because you have been possessed by society. Society has possessed you and made you think some things can be true, normal, and legitimate. And under that possession, you desire to act as society wants you to act. To play a role as society wants you to play it. So society says there are two sexes, male and female, two genders, man and woman. Men should dress this way, women should dress that way, men should be masculine, women should be feminine, etc., etc., etc. But what's more is queer theory says you're queer, you've forgotten it because you've been possessed by society to such an extent that you imprison yourself in your own body. You build a prison for yourself in your own body. Michel Foucault, who escaped allegations of pedophilia only in death, and his partner in crime, Queen Judith Butler, put it this way. Oh, some of you know about her. Nice. I can actually read her now. It's scary. I understand everything she's saying. Spent a lot of time with Queen Judy. They said it this way. They said the soul is the prison of the body. The soul is the prison of the body, not as some Christian imagery might suggest. This is what Judith Butler writes in 1990 in Gender Trouble, where the body is a container or a vessel for the soul. They say no, the soul is the prison of the body. The social, political soul of society possesses us and makes us think we are male or are female, are men or are women, are straight or are gay. And under those convictions, we become those things. We are not born them. We cannot be them. We become them. In the same way that Simone de Beauvoir said one is not born but becomes woman 75 years ago. I can't stress this enough. This is something a lot of people miss. Queer theory says there is no such thing as male or female, no such thing as a man or a woman, no such thing as sex or gender. Queer theory says they're all social constructions. Queen Judy B calls them psychosocial phantasms in her latest book. Ooh. Psychosocial phantasms that possess us and make us think we are male, female, straight, gay, man or woman, and under that possession and with that conviction, we imprison ourselves in our own bodies to become those things. That's her entire thesis. Gender performativity, everything's a performance. You can't be those things, you perform those things. Society, I promise you, does not come into my hotel room and grab my arm and force it into the wardrobe and say, you're wearing a jacket today. It doesn't force me to have the haircut I have or behave the way I do. Queer theory says you're possessed to desire fitting into that, to do those things, to imprison myself in the way I look. It's not grabbing the little girl's hand and forcing it into her wardrobe and saying, you're wearing a dress today. It's not a performance, queer theory says, that you choose. It's one you are possessed into. So I can't be male. I can't be a man. I can't be masculine. I am just possessed to desire the socially constructed categories of male, man, and masculine and behave in certain ways, adopt certain behaviors, dress a certain way, have certain love interests. And at the end of the day, I look in the mirror and I think that's an accurate assessment of what I really am on the inside. But it's not, according to queer theory. Queer theory says I am staring at an alien being. To use the technical Marxist jargon and terminology, I have been alienated from my true self, my true inner self. Society has possessed me to want these things. I don't know what's really on the inside. I'm stuck in the matrix. I'm completely possessed. So what do I do about it? Any guesses? I wake up. I become woke. Woke as shit. I start casting off all of these psychosocial phantasms. I throw on my proton pack and I walk out and I start blasting everything away. And I start trying to figure out what's really on the inside. Maybe I adopt new pronouns. Maybe I start wearing a dress. Maybe I start lopping off body parts. I have to go on a constant, perpetual mission to figure out what's really on the inside, absent every possible societal influence, and no one can tell me any differently. Only I know what's really on the inside. Everything else, you're just another one of these psychosocial phantasms trying to possess me. There's a reason I say it's a radical, revolutionary religious cult. Does that not sound like a religious cult? Just at face value. So that's what queer theory is in general. It's the doctrine of this radical religious cult. But what a lot of people are surprised to learn is how long it has been in education. So many of you will know that queer theory got its name in 1990 at a conference in California. Teresa de la Redes named it. But what many of you may not know is only 3 short years later, in 1993, 2 Canadian educators, Mary Kay Bryson and Susan DeCastle, were publishing the first landmark educational paper for queer theory. And it was called Queer Pedagogy, Praxis Makes Imperfect. But there was a hyphen after the letters I and M, so it was praxis makes imperfect, I'm perfect. It's a binary. They like to play with language. It's all so stupid. And the word praxis, if you're not familiar, it's a Marxist buzzword. It means putting your theory into practice, becoming a radical activist, a dipshit. That's what it means. So they released this paper, and in it they define queer pedagogy. And queer pedagogy is the combination of queer theory. How do we teach this to kids? You know, you won't find the name Judith Butler in your child's classroom, I doubt it, or Michel Foucault. So how are they doing it? It's combining queer theory with the Brazilian Marxist and communist Paulo Freire's consciousness-raising, awakening program. It's smashing them together, and they define it this way. Quote, to deliberately interfere with and intervene in the production of normalcy in schooled subjects. More commie gobbledygook. All it means is we're going to deliberately interfere in education and make sure children do not turn out normal. Don't turn out believing in things like the truth. Don't turn out believing in things such as a stable reality. They think they're so clever on the paper they're talking about. It's kind of like scribbling graffiti all over the textbooks and deliberately taking the wrong route to school. This is in 1993. A large reason, part of the reason I got into this, I got so damn sick of hearing it's not in schools, so I had to go read all this stuff to prove it to them. But this is in 1993. Just 2 years later, Deborah P. Britzman, who was a psychoanalyst diving in queer theory, look up her picture sometime. I don't mean to be mean, but you can just tell instantly this is a person doing this. She says one of the goals of queer pedagogy is to proliferate identifications. They always talk like this. It's so maddening. Proliferate identifications, meaning we need to interrupt the fact that little girls and boys like to identify as little girls and boys. They desire those things. We've got to give them more options. We've got to open it up to them so they don't desire repetition. Against repetition, Kevin Kumashiro's thing, repeating what the possessive forces of society want. So that was insane. And then just 4 years later, it's not in schools, remember, but in 1999, James T. Sears is releasing an edited volume of educators and activists theorizing how we do queer theory in schools and how we apply it, and also sharing stories about how successful it's been already, 1999. And it's not in schools, but that volume was called Queering Elementary Education. Queering Elementary Education. Just 3 years later, you get people like Kevin Kumashiro, that's when it really explodes. It exploded and it was so successful that some of the prominent queer theorists were saying that we've had an amazing, they say, this is a quote, amazing conquest of academia. But they were worried already in the year 2000 that queer theory was so successful it was becoming normal, which was a huge problem for them. Huge problem. It's normal. One of their biggest proponents, Michael Warner, he's saying, damn it, it's normal. This is a problem. How do we make it more queer? How do we experience more queer? So things are off to the races. From there, you have a couple of dear colleague letters from the Obama department and his administration, a ton of activist lawyering from places like the ACLU. And then you get to where we're at today, where queer theory is practiced on children in schools nationwide. Like I said, you're not going to find the name Judith Butler. You're not going to find the name Michel Foucault. You might find the genderbread man or the gender unicorn. But what you're missing is the engine of this process, the consciousness-raising engine of how it's practiced in schools. And it's mostly done, unfortunately for us trying to uncover it, through conversations. You know, in that book I mentioned earlier, Queering Critical Literacy and Numeracy for Social Justice, I don't know how I said that twice without messing it up. The author is a math teacher and a queer activist, and she has designed a class called Math for a Cause, Math for Social Justice. And in that, she's got students learning about proportionality in math class. So as a parent, you're thinking, oh, this is great. My young learner is going to learn about proportionality and some statistics. This is awesome. But then she talks about what is done in between the lessons, what the real goal of the lessons is. And that's for students to go pick out some hand-selected research articles that she's collated for them and figure out how they can make a math problem out of these articles. Now, all of them are insane articles from the jump, the ones they have to pick from. One of them is, in particular, is comparing suicide rates between states based on marriage equality laws. And these are 4th and 5th graders. So she's having them go read it. She's, in my estimation, traumatizing them, throwing them into crisis so that she can manage their crisis and resolve it productively. So she can use that conversation and those biased sources they're reading to have conversations where they come out of it in a productive manner, meaning where they come out of it initiated more into this doctrine. We call it in the book, it's trauma bonding. Have any of you ever heard of that phrase? It's trauma bonding. It's intentionally traumatizing students, making them think the whole world is out to get them. You're going to die if this doesn't happen, if you can't be who you really are in the inside, completely destabilizing them, convincing them there is no such thing as truth. Male and female are completely made up categories by powerful people in society to benefit themselves at the expense of everyone else, yada, yada, yada. And then they're just a pile, an emotional wreck on the floor. And then it's coming in with the love bombing. You traumatize them and then you bond to them. Coming in with the love bombing and say, don't worry, I know this is scary and complex, but I'm here to defend you. I'm here to help you navigate you through this process. There's a poster that just pissed me off a couple of years ago, a lot of them. But this one was a poster, there was like a polar bear on it. It said, if your mom or your parents aren't affirming of your new identity, I'm your mom now. And this was coming from a teacher. One I highly suspect is performing this trauma bonding process. Having conversations with students that are not written down, that parents are never going to see, ever, and traumatizing them and then bonding to them so that they'll go to these secretive clubs after school, and so they'll reach out to their teacher for the best therapist to talk to about all of this stuff. This has been happening for a very long time. I have to tell people constantly, there are thousands and thousands and thousands of dissertations, papers, articles, short films, everything you can imagine, whole-fledged books of people who have been working on queer theory and practicing it in schools for the last 30 years. So it's no wonder things have been so abnormal. That's what queer theory is designed to do entirely. It's completely in opposition to the norm. It's meant to shatter any foundation it can latch to. And the biggest foundation kids have is their parents, their family. So that is the number one thing that queer theory attacks. It's separating children from their parents, making their parents look like the boogeyman that queer theory's always warned about. What do you mean your mom and dad told you there's only two sexes? I told you they'd say that. I told you, I warned you. Come to me, I've got all of the ritual and the language and the jargon to get you hooked. It's an absolutely wicked program. Now, one thing Stella asked us to do was to give practical advice during our talks, and if there's anything, again, I'm just a dad who kind of fell into this. The number one thing you could do is, if you have children or grandchildren or friends who have children or grandchildren, is talk to them. You have to talk to them, because if you're waiting to see an assignment come back in a folder from school, you're probably not going to see it. You need to know what they're doing in school, and the only way to do that is to talk to them and bond with them and make an ironclad relationship with your kids or your grandchildren. Get to them first. Make sure early, and this is something that's very important to the development of children, that they know the world is divided into males and females. It's one of the first things that children learn that help them categorize this whole mess they've been thrown into. So there's males and females. Make sure they know. Make sure they're comfortable with explaining to you what's happening in the classroom, and then interrogate the hell out of their teachers. You can almost know by appearance. It's pretty sad, but it's a real thing. Figure out what's happening. And I know that can be difficult, especially in private schools, but figure out what's happening in the classroom, because so much of it is designed deliberately to happen with just conversation. If you're interested in learning more, gave a book-length treatment on the topic, again, available in fine bookstores everywhere as long as it's Amazon. I don't make anything when a copy's sold, so you're not going to make me rich buying the book, but you will inform yourself and hear more of this argument fleshed out. So how much time do I have? 20 seconds? I have time for one question? There's a hand up over there.
Hi, thank you. I'm Kathleen. I have a daughter in this and a granddaughter to that daughter now. So I'm concerned about the education. Is this what social emotional learning is part of?
Yeah, that's another can of worms, but yeah, and we write my contributor and I write a lot about that in the book too. So I was just speaking with someone before I came up here about social and emotional learning, saying, it's taken a decade to kind of wake people up to the fact that there's this thing called queer theory and radical gender ideology, and they should care about it before it comes to them. One of the next big things is going to be trying to wake people up to how destabilizing and awful and evil social and emotional learning is in most cases. And we talk about it in the book a bit, but that could be a whole talk in itself. Yeah, sure. Thank you for your question.
Yeah, thank you. Good talk. Is this just communism in disguise?
If I could sum it up, yeah. Sure. I mean, we dedicate a couple of chapters in the book to explaining way more in depth the history of queer theory and what we believe the philosophical foundation of it is and where it comes from. And a lot of this stems directly back to the writings of Karl Marx, but even a lot further. The queer theory itself, no. But I would argue Marxism doesn't have anything to do with economics either. That's a different talk. Can you have me back next year? Thank you very much.